Hey everybody, before we get to the episode, I wanted to bring up a comment we got on Twitter from Troy regarding definition of ADR, which is a common term we throw around.
We have our ADR of the week, as you may have noticed, and if you don't know what ADR, I imagine that's been pretty confusing for you.
Yeah, so it's automated dialogue replacement, which is also commonly known as looping, where actors re-record dialogue because of on-location sound problems, or if the writers decide to kind of change the script very last minute, let's just say.
One of the most famous instances of ADR is the recording of James Earl Jones for Darth Vader, replacing David Prowse, who was recorded on set. So you can do a lot with ADR to really change characterization and affect the entire final product.
Meanwhile, on Xena, it's often most noticeable in crowd scenes. Okay, now enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of Xena Warrior Podcast. My name is Vera, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, as per usual.
I'm Katie, hi.
And I'm Livy, hello.
And today we are talking about episode 107 and 108 of Xena, season 1. The first one is The Titans, and actually both of them are written by R.J. Stewart.
RJ, why?
Yes, good question. Maybe not the best episodes. Certainly one of these is definitely not the best episode of the season.
But they both certainly have interesting
They
things. They
have some stuff.
Yes.
So let's dig into The Titans, the first one. This is about Titans, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Would you guys both agree that this feels like a rejected Hercules script?
A little bit.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There's a lot of Hercules we can talk about in the next
That's
few
true. He's
episodes.
all over this in various ways, tonal and actual.
Actual yes. But this one, this is a classic Hercules kind of style of fighting a monster or like a big thing.
Yeah, like a mythological threat.
Big thing.
Right, yeah. Up till now, Xena's been about like the evils men do, and suddenly it's the evils giants do.
Yeah, and of course, the Titans kind of deal with Hercules' dad, Zeus. So a lot of things that are kind of tied into his family, let's just say.
Yeah, they're gods, basically.
Yes.
Like rejected gods.
Yes.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, this is a Gabrielle episode. And it's basically the first one.
Dreamworker.
Right? Well, okay.
Ish. But
yeah.
But
You're
yeah,
right.
this is certainly the first Gabrielle hijinks episode, if that counts
Yeah.
as a genre within
counts.
Xena.
I do think that it was filmed or supposed to go beforehand, because you can tell by the fact that in the last episode, Xena started wearing her sword on her back. And in this one, she still has it on her hip.
Oh, so you
Nice
think this is
So this is definitely like they put it here.
Gotcha.
Probably because we had 2 Xena ones in a row, and they needed a Gabs one.
It definitely feels like an episode that they would have shot early. It feels like
Yeah.
a show that isn't quite sure
Oh, yeah.
what it wants to be, and it's dabbling with stuff from the parent show, seeing what that feels like wrong. It feels
It
wrong.
feels very bad. Goes against the grain.
Hey, it starts with this really gorgeous, very close-up shot of Xena, and my first note for this episode was, Xena's eyes are so fucking blue.
Oh yeah, let's talk
So
about
let's
this
just
for a
talk
bit.
about that for a second.
They
They're
blue.
so blue.
Yeah.
And gorgeous.
And she's wearing some very dated eyeshadow over
Yeah.
them, but it just makes them bluer, so it's
good.
fine.
It's a good shot. Yeah, we liked it a lot.
I actually also had a note about Xena's appearance in that first fight with Hesiod and the goons. She's smiling through so much of this fight, and I think that's a very typical Xena trait, is
Yeah.
that she just sort of has this almost terrifying shit-eating grin throughout fights, and I think it's very special.
Yeah.
But certainly for a female warrior to look like she's enjoying herself,
Yeah.
so blatantly in a battle. But I would say maybe even for any hero, you're supposed to kind of be stoic and ugh, this is hard. And Xena does not make fighting dudes look hard.
No.
She does like it, and I remember you reacted really strongly to it in, let's say, some episode where she sort of, maybe is getting one-upped, and she's not smiling, and you react really strongly. You're like, oh no, like something's wrong because she's not, doing her, I love this, let's punch a dude in the face.
When I first started watching the show, this was one of the things that I think most endeared me to it, because I just had never seen it before. I loved that smile, and I would look out for that smile, because I felt like that smile was just one of the most special things about this show and its conception of heroism.
Yeah, she tends to play with her food. Like, this is the equivalent of that.
Yeah, definitely. It feels very, I mean, I'm sure it's genuine, but there is a sense of, like, you don't want to mess with me because look how much, I'm enjoying this. This is fun. You're making me smile. Oh, you.
That was kind of up to 11 in this episode, I think, especially in the climactic fight, too. She's, like, running around cackling, basically.
So what does Gabrielle do at this point? I have a line that Xena says, and I kind of don't remember what Gabrielle does.
Screws up with the horse.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Xena tells her to take Argo. She's like, let's go get you a snack, even though literally all the grass is always around Argo, so there's always a snack for Argo. But she screws up the saddle, right? And so Gabrielle says that she's sorry, and then Xena goes, don't be sorry, Gabrielle. Just improve. What a line! Jeez.
Xena's a harsh taskmistress.
She was just pissed because she couldn't chase the guy. The guy went off on a horse, like, real fast, so she had to chase him.
But it does kind of give us a little bit of setup for the rest of the episode, where Gabrielle is doing a lot of things to actively try and be not quite herself.
To improve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she wants to contribute. She wants to be able to help Xena. This is sort of an instance where she is, doing the opposite of helping Xena. She's trying to kind of be her companion in battle, and right now, more often than not, she's just tripping her up. So that's a frustrating situation for both of them.
She wanders into this cave where she hears, because Xena went chasing after the dude, Gabs is alone, and wanders into this cave where there's a ritual being held.
Which sounds totally like a bunch of people trying to direct a play, because they're like, can you deliver those lines differently? Like, slower, louder. Like, they're using all this sort of, what to me reads as, like, director talk. It's
George
funny.
Lucas director talk.
Yeah,
faster, more intense. Yes, absolutely. And
of course, Gabrielle's a great actress, so she comes in and she's like, give me those lines.
We sort of saw it later that she wasn't quite good at acting, but
she's got enough enthusiasm. She can do faster, more intense.
Yeah, so this is what I call her Hermione moment, because she definitely did it's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa, but opposite, because literally for here, it's the first syllable.
Accent, yeah.
She's like, I can do this better than this lady.
I read on Wish that this actually is Greek that she's speaking, though it's so awkward sounding that I'm not sure anyone would actually know that.
And then it's a bunch of gibberish, right? It's just like, it's words, but they don't make sense put together.
Yeah, it's like good morning a bunch, right? Something like that. And then just made up
Well,
words.
you're waking up with the Titans. Good morning, good morning.
That's right, it works.
How are you?
Yeah, so this little priest guy who I think looks like Lee Pace.
All right.
With the eyebrows.
Robert Sheen. That's
All
what
right.
I saw.
Mixed with Lee Pace's eyebrows.
How do we rate this boyfriend of the week?
Yeah.
Well, honestly,
That sounds about right.
I think that if they remained a couple for eternity and that's it,
Oh, God.
that's it, then he'd be pretty good
he was
so far.
nice.
Because, I'm jumping ahead, but the whole point is that, Gabrielle awakens these Titans, and she's the goddess to them who awakened them. And he literally does worship her like a goddess.
He says she has the aura of a goddess.
Yeah, so like
It's a nice
as a
compliment.
boyfriend, you want your guy to worship you, and he would, and hence, not literally, but like out of boyfriends of the week, he would have been okay with her. Too bad she's a big giant les, so like that would have come up. But
I question Boyfriend's judgment, because like, why was he trying to wake up the Titans to begin with? It seems like the worst idea.
Yeah, what was...
he wanted the Titans to help their village.
Right.
So it was a good idea. It was a radical idea. Now, he needed a virgin to say the things. We find out later he himself is a virgin. Why didn't he do it himself?
He didn't want the shame, the public shame of admitting that.
Well, Gabrielle ends up doing it, as we've mentioned. So these 3 Titans wake up, even though later we find out there's like hundreds of them there. So how does it only 3 hear it, the chant.
They could only cast 3 Titans.
Yeah.
A lot of questions
Yeah.
this episode leaves.
So it's 3 Titans. There's 2 guys and a girl. There's, what are their names? Hyperion, the Sun Titan. There's Cryas, the older one.
Thea,
And-
the girl.
The girl one. Yes, and they themselves have an incredible, complicated relationship.
They're kind of interesting, I think.
I was going to say,
in a weird
it's weirdly repulsive to me.
Ooh, why?
Like, I just was very grossed out by
Why?
it.
Well, that's part of what it is. It's just like there's
There's
like
a lot of PDA.
there's like an odd quality to their relationship
And I
and,
feel like
weird
the fact
jealousy.
that they're so, like, big. The idea of just these, like, huge people, like, making out and, like, wanting to fuck each other, like, in front of people. I just was
there's not
very
a like,
weirded out
place
by
where they
them.
can go really because there's
So large.
they can't get a room like because they are Titans.
Yeah.
This is probably a good point to actually talk about this 1995 episode of TV doing a pretty good job with forced perspective, right? It's mostly not special effects, which
It's very
I think
clever.
it looks good.
They came up with a lot of just clever, like good angles for the camera that really used it to their best advantage. I loved all the stuff with just like they're drinking out of barrels, cup-sized barrels.
Yeah.
Like they're just these like little details of set design and obviously camera positioning that added to the reality of the Titans. And I agree, it's aged pretty well. You kind of accept it. You're not just pointing at it going green screen, green screen.
Well, the green screen only happened in the cave.
I have a
It's
feeling
not-
they only had one version of that cave set, and it was for human-sized people.
Right.
So they clearly
Yeah,
had to,
there you go.
green screen.
Yeah,
'Cause
The
everything
internet
else-
wants to say that it was all practical, but that cannot possibly be true.
Definitely
in that
Well,
not
moment.
they
that
spend a
one.
lot of time
Yeah.
outside, and it was, very well done. I think
Yeah.
probably there they have the room to play with the forced perspective.
I
So
really love the
hence-
shots of Hyperion destroying the village. And you have
Yeah.
all these great shots of sort of like his hands, gripping the roofs, while in the background you see little village people running.
Yeah.
And it had a lot. It was very evocative.
Did they lower the voice of Thea? Because
No.
for the men, they lower
The
their
men
voice.
got these like deep resonant voices, and Thea's just like, "No, stop!
I'm the
Stop!
girl Titan.
Why do you kill him?" Ugh. I have a note in my
very
episode
exasperated by her,
reaction.
Liv.
I was really annoyed by this character. I just found her so passive. She's a giant. Why is she just like, stop?
She liked humans, and she kind of had feelings for both of her Titan boyfriends.
Then make a decision, girl. Don't just stand there while they fight over you, being like, no.
She likes them fighting over her. That's so
Well,
like
see, that
lady
I could have been into if
characteristic.
she was sitting there being like, no, stop. But she was not.
Meanwhile, Gabrielle, another lady who is now a goddess, gets really into being the goddess of these people. Let's talk about
Finally
this.
has some power. She can
She went
give
crazy
orders.
with it.
Xena's always the one telling her what to do. Finally, she can tell some giant ass people what to do.
Do you think this is in character? Like, is this a correct thing that Gabrielle would be like?
There are parts of it that definitely are, because you see later, especially when she talks about, her background in her studies and her writing, she does have a tendency to get slightly like cocky or full of herself in terms of really loving that, which I think is great.
Yeah,
and
it's
like a
absolutely
great characteristic.
believable. Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of like getting caught up in the like megalomania of
Yeah,
it all, I
yeah.
suppose, of being this goddess who wants to like save the world with titans. I don't know.
She doesn't get very far into
Yeah,
the
she doesn't-
megalomania.
yeah.
She's just like, can you put some rocks in this stream?
Yeah.
It's pretty.
But she's like really rude to them. I thought. She's like,
She's ordering
go
them
do
around.
that, and then once you're done with your chores, like maybe you can share some food
Yeah,
with the
she-
villagers. Not like,
she treats them
please
as tools.
do this. That would be really nice of you if you did this.
The commentary on Whoosh describes it as a radical retrograde personality change. So what do you think about that?
That's a pretty radical statement. I
mean,
think.
Yeah.
This is the 7th episode.
Yeah.
Like, do
How
we
much-
have a retrograde yet?
Yeah, how much is already established about what she is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
even them saying how she knows the language of the scrolls here is a little weird, because from what we've known so far, she basically only knows names of places from maps.
She studied maps and stuff, she said.
So now we are supposed to assume that she also knows
Dorian
and Ionian rhythms, you know?
It's very Giles of her.
You could
It's very
read in a
Giles.
book. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I accept
Assuming
it.
her village has these
And she
scrolls
wants
and
to
books.
study to be a bard, so knowing how to properly recite something seems in
It's true.
her.
Do you think,
Yeah.
is this the first time she mentioned this or no? Oh, wait, she hasn't mentioned it yet. That's the next episode.
She'll mention it in Prometheus, but while it may be the first time she ever mentions her ambitions of being a bard, we know that her ability to tell stories is something she's been bragging about since the first episode.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So it's a natural
None
thing
of these
for her
developments
to
to me seem inconsistent, and I thought her behavior in this episode is, while maybe nobody's favorite aspect of Gabrielle's personality, I think it clearly is part of who she is, which is a brash kid who wants to feel important and wants to do something real, and sometimes that's going to lead her into making some mistakes.
Yeah,
I guess
who has just been told to improve by
in a really strong manner, yes. But I still think that I would assume that she'd just be a little nicer about it. She could be, you know, the goddess, but just not so harsh to them. But again,
I think she's showing off. She's showing off for the human-sized people and isn't really thinking about, you know, these titans as beings who deserve compassion.
However, I do think that it is the most fun aspect of the episode, and it's why this episode is worth watching generally. And she's so, like, Renee is so funny and fun, like, acting, that I think it's great. Like,
I loved how
I just enjoy watching it.
Yeah.
Well, I love watching her. So yeah, she was really funny.
Yeah, it brings the screwball element to it, because you're watching her kind of, you know, showing off, and it's so goofy and very lovable.
I mean, it's a really
so
important,
goofy.
in a weird way. It's one of the most, not the most important, but like an important episode for Gabrielle as a character to kind of trace her, because not only do you have, you know, Xena rashly telling her to improve, and then in the next episode, you know, she's also really kind of like asking all these questions about kind of what the role of a sidekick is and everything like that. They also bring up her virginity a lot in this one, and that's kind of one of the first. Again, she has like 2 virginities in this show, and this is one of the first ones that is brought up a lot in this episode.
It has plot relevance.
Yeah.
You need to be a virgin to work the magic on the Titans, so her virginity becomes kind of the central aspect of the episode.
It does, yeah.
Which I think both she and Xena have mixed feelings about.
Yes. A scene like later on where Xena sort of walks in on her and the boyfriend of the week.
This is fascinating. This is a great
It was
scene.
it was so unexpected, I thought. It was pretty amazing. But yeah, so Xena walks in and is waking people up in the morning to go do a thing, and they're spooning. Xena assumes things, and then Gabrielle is like, yeah, what if? Like, whatever. It's fine. It's my business.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, it is your business. And they have like a weird fight about it, almost.
Yeah, I would say there's certainly tension.
Yeah, big time tension. It was just very...
And
very
I love that
fascinating.
close-up of Xena's expression, and you just see so much there. Like, she's disappointed. It's writ clearly upon her face.
I liked also how Gabrielle introduced Xena to the Titans. This is Xena. She's my best friend.
Is this the first time we've heard Gabrielle call Xena her best friend? We've heard them call each other friends.
she upped to best friend like by episode 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Like, and that was funny because it was just so quick, you know? We just met, but she's my best friend.
best friends at first sight.
Something like that.
These aren't people who've had a lot of friends in their lives, so you meet one who actually gets along with you, and best friend.
What do we think of the villagers in this one? They were pretty...
Surprisingly
intense.
horrible.
Yeah, very self-protective in it for themselves kind of thing. Like, did not care about, you know, Xena, and what was it that one lady was trying to do there?
She was trying to, like, sell Gabrielle and the boyfriend of the week to the Titans in exchange, I guess, for, you know, protecting the village.
Yeah.
But that was particularly shocking to me because presumably
boyfriend of the week is one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not even like a xenophobic reaction. They're just like xenophobic. But, you know, they're just like willing to sell their own people up the river for survival. So this is not a very pretty picture of...
I don't think these people are great. Remember, one of the plots at the end is that one of the priests from this temple of Kronos has taken the children of the village on a field trip.
Yeah.
And then they're like, la la la, we're on a field trip. And then they come up on the Titans. And the guy literally just runs away. Like E.T. runs.
Hands flailing in the air like E.T.
Like straight up leaves these kids to
He's
these
like
Titans.
the lawyer from Jurassic Park.
Yeah. He
Yes!
deserves to get eaten.
AKA the worst person ever. Yeah.
Although we don't know
He doesn't
anything
even
about
get-
him.
We know that.
We
What
know
else
that,
is there to
yeah.
know?
Runs away.
Yeah.
So we don't. He doesn't even get eaten by the Titans, so that's not fair.
Yeah, so I mean, but
Thanks, dude.
But I think that says something about, I don't know, these people. It's so weird that, you know, this whole episode is kind of about
Save the village.
save
of
these
horrible
village.
people.
Yeah, they're horrible. Gosh.
But of course, again, they wanted to wake up at the Titans to like do their housework.
Yeah.
Like, they suck.
They kind of do suck. Yeah, you're right. I did like I would say the ADR of the week after the kids kind of, Xena saves them? Is that?
Yeah.
Xena saves
Xena
the kids, right? And they go back to this temple and the kid runs in and he's like, so this kid almost got crushed by a Titan. And he just runs in and he goes, Mommy, I'm hungry.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
That was really like not what he should be screaming. So the Titans, we sort of mentioned their internal drama, this kind of soap opera that they were living. But I mean, it escalated pretty intensely when one of them kills another.
Yeah, Hyperion impales Cryus with a stalactite.
Because they're big, so that's
They're
you know,
big,
that's
so.
like what they would do.
And meanwhile, Thea stands alongside going, no, no.
Gosh.
Is she your least favorite character ever?
So far, that's pretty safe to say. I was so frustrated by this woman. Why?
I really-
Especially in a show that has so many amazing female portrayals. Why?
I have to say I give her a point because, I mean, the episode sort of climaxed with the fact that Xena and the villagers concoct this crazy thing where they create a weird trap for, like, the hand.
They make him a giant wooden bracelet and kind of like lock him into it.
Yeah, like, so, but it holds him. Hyperion kind of, like, falls for this bait and he puts his hand through the doorway or whatever and it gets caught, so he's caught in it, and Xena, I guess, is then gonna, with her tiny sword, like, kill him somehow.
She seems pretty good at that. She stabbed him through the sandal in one of, I would
But
say,
that's
the
like
best shots
a
of this
toothpick
episode.
in
I
your
love that
foot.
giant sandal. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, you really had a sense of its sort of like weight and texture. It was good. Practical effects.
It's great, but again, it's a toothpick on his, you know, on your foot.
Hey, you want me to stab you with a
No,
toothpick?
but I'm just saying
That hurts.
I'm just saying she would have to do a lot of tiny stabs to like get rid of him entirely. But before she tries that, I liked how Thea was like, "No, don't do it," and
No,
offered,
don't do it.
She was like, "Make us all stone instead of killing him." I thought that was
That's
very
true.
nice.
Which I kind of was like, really? You'd rather just be in like, you know, stasis forever? That's better for her? Because this is a woman so passive that she would rather be like
Remain
that
stone.
than die.
Right.
She can't make a decision.
Well, I guess, you know, Hyperion wanted them to bring back all the Titans. So it wouldn't just be like 2 or 3 of them. It would just be hundreds of them. So they'd be back and presumably reproduce and just
Overthrow the
live.
gods.
Yeah, and overthrow the humans for sure. He really hated humans. She liked humans. So that's why they had that problem immediately. I thought it was cool that she liked humans so much that she didn't want them to mess it up for humans and sacrificed herself and saved Hyperion in the process. A man, I guess she had like some love for, even though he was
why?
the worst. Gabrielle, her like virginity comes up again at the end because
Well, at first you think she can't say the magic words to make the Titans all wake up. because she is no longer a virgin because of boyfriend of the week.
We're supposed to be a little shocked in the moment.
I was. When we were watching it the first time, I believed it, and I was like, dang, all right, cool.
I was into it. Yeah, I thought that was really exciting to actually just have Gabrielle sort of lose her virginity to a rando.
Yeah.
And then kind of have it brought up in a way where you're like, oh, good. I'm glad you did that because you can't bring about Armageddon. So that's handy. But of course, it turns out that she has just deliberately mispronounced the chant. Alas, she's still a virgin. But Xena seems pretty happy to hear about that.
There is a lot of good stuff, I think, between Xena and Gabrielle and how Gabrielle kind of feels about what Xena thinks of her in this episode. So she's kind of, through the middle of the episode, is realizing she's made some mistakes, right? And wants to fix them. And then, says some ideas to Xena, like, I want to go sneak in and I'll take care of this. I'm not sure what the response that Xena has exactly is, but it ends with Gabrielle being like, she has no respect for me.
Yeah.
Because she wanted to sneak in at night, say the spell while they
Xena
slept.
says it's too risky.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Which it
like,
is, and it is.
So she was trying to protect Gabrielle, and Gabrielle's like, she just doesn't believe in me, and doesn't respect me.
It does turn out to be a very bad idea.
Yeah, they capture her.
Yeah, and she's exactly what they need to bring about Titan Armageddon.
Yeah.
So you don't want to hand that to them.
Yeah, Gab's made a mistake there.
But she's also the only person who can put them back to sleep. So she's both wrong and right in wanting to be involved.
Yeah.
Xena needs to learn to let Gabrielle take risks.
Exactly.
I think Xena is as much at fault in this episode as Gabrielle.
It's true. I mean, baby steps. Like, this is the beginning of her journey, and I think throughout the entire show, she does make decisions, and they're not, believably, they're not all good ones. I feel like Xena, mostly, you're like, yeah, she would always make the right decision, and she always commands, and leads. But Gabrielle has lots of chances throughout the series, and not all of them pan out,
Yeah.
This is one of them.
I really like their conversation at the end of the episode where they kind of resolve their tension. I think it's a very nice beat. You guys want to talk about it?
Wait, is this where she has the moment with the boyfriend of the week and she breaks up with him?
Oh yes.
And he's like gonna kiss her, right? And the framing is so funny. It's like basically like a 2-shot, pretty tight on them. It's a very intimate moment. He wants to kiss her, and you think that's going to happen because she's breaking up with
his boyfriend.
And this is when he tells her he's a virgin. Yeah. Which I like to think as soon as she hears that, she's like, oh, you lazy bastard. Why weren't you doing the chant yourself? Okay. Bye.
Yeah, she's like, heart stop for the kiss. And then the camera pans back and Xena's like right there listening to the whole thing. It's really funny.
It makes sense because Xena's always been that presence between them.
Looming, yeah. I mean, Gabrielle does some of her own looming throughout the series.
Of course.
Over Xena and her boyfriends of the week. They both
get to be in this position where there's a boyfriend of the week and the other one kind of has to stand slightly to the left, awkwardly.
So what was their final exchange?
Well, they sort of put it aside.
Katie, do you have... I feel like you had something to say about that.
Did I?
No?
Oh, well, I mean, I was thinking about earlier, like, Gabs is still trying to get out of this thought that she has where Xena thinks that she's a child, basically, right? And can't, like, make these decisions. But then, like, at the end, they have that really great moment between them where Xena's like, I'm never going to hate you. I think when you act and you do these things, your heart is always in the right place.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's a really nice sentiment.
And this is where she tells her to stay away from her horse.
Right. That's the final beat. She's like, just stay away from my horse.
They're talking about how they're friends and they're not going to let all this silly shit get in between that.
Yeah.
And it's great because it's true.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a really nice depiction of their friendship this episode because clearly there's a lot of negotiation involved. They're both trying to kind of figure out how they fit into each other's lives, and that's difficult. So I like that in the end there's sort of this beat of, however that is resolved, they're always going to respect each other. They're always going to love each other.
But it's very believable that Gabrielle wants to help Xena in any way she can. That's like her desire. And Xena knows that she's not quite capable and wants to protect her and hence constantly sideline her because of that. because she's like this precious thing with the purest heart that she really likes and is a stand-in for her brother and whatever. Then,
Absolutely.
But so she wants to protect her. So that conflict is just everyone's well-meaning.
I think that's what makes it so satisfying.
Yeah.
You understand why both of them are kind of making the mistakes that they're making, and they're very noble mistakes, wanting to help but not really having the physical skills to be able to, and then wanting to protect even though that's so stifling. Yeah.
Very believable. Very good. That was the Titans episode. All right, moving on to 108, Prometheus. They're still following the Titan theme because he was a Titan. So I can see how these two episodes were paired.
Yes.
I think he even got a mention.
Yeah, he got a mention in the Titan one. The crux of this episode is that Prometheus is chained up by Hera, which is, I guess, a change from the myth because it's supposed to be Zeus. But Hera's the baddie on Hercules. And this is a crossover with Hercules. So there you go. Does anybody have the description from Netflix?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, the Netflix. I didn't. Oh.
What's the description from?
It's a butt kicking double date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is how Netflix describes this very special episode.
What is it from TV Guide? Do you have that?
It's a little more innocuous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Netflix is confused.
It's the actual plot of the episode. Butt kicking double date.
Well, this starts with a really great scene, I thought.
Dude sneaking up on some sleeping ladies. Oh no.
Yeah, we talked previously about how Xena and Gabrielle, are self-sufficient, so they camp a lot.
Right.
So this is an example of them sleeping under the stars.
And our first moment where we see that Gabs is a super heavy sleeper, which will continue forever.
Yeah, that's just, her character.
It's a very innocent thing. She doesn't sleep with one eye open.
No.
She sleeps with like 3 eyes shut.
Yeah.
That's right. So she's, totally asleep, and then you see Xena is like all curled up next to her, and the goons are like, yes, let's go. And the first guy comes up, and he goes over Xena with a sword. He's like, I'm the man who kills Xena, and he swings down.
And then birds flying everywhere. The old Ned Stark moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's beheaded, and it's done. You can go home now.
Xena said, rando guy killed her in her sleep.
But no.
Yeah.
No.
What is it really?
It's a watermelon and a wig.
Okay.
Number one, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah,
Number
let's discuss this.
Where did they get a watermelon? Number two, why is she carrying around a wig that's her own?
That's the main question. They mention how their melons, suffered right now. So they did get a melon, and they were carrying it around for a special occasion to,
Is it the same wig later that, Gabrielle will use?
No, because that's
dyed
hair.
Yeah.
It's her dyed hair. Oh, that's right.
Is no reason why she has just a wig with her.
Do you think maybe they're hair extensions? She just tucks
pulled
in
her
weave
own
sometimes.
Her own weave that she actually has. No, there is
Do you
really
think they just
no explanation.
They literally have this watermelon with a wig that they sometimes just talk to. This is
this is their Wilson.
This is their Wilson.
Well, maybe you should ask whether this is just something that Xena was doing on her own.
What?
Well,
yeah, what?
Maybe she used this tactic all the time on her own.
As a decoy.
Where she would have
watermelon in a wig trick.
Listen, it works.
Just many skills. So
they
yeah.
were fooled.
Yeah, absolutely. So the guys, she comes out of the trees and real Xena attacks them. She takes them all out. One of them gets a crazy neck wound, and you see yet another instance of her field medicine. She invents something. She invents the tracheotomy. That's great.
It's also great that she is working so hard to save the life of this man who attacked her. I think this is the first time we've really seen Xena kind of treat those types of people as people she needs to save. Usually she's okay with being judge, jury, executioner, but here she is, maybe under Gabrielle's influence, working a little bit harder to spare the life of these sort of lowlives who they
That's
come
true,
upon.
and maybe she realized her body count since the first episode where she just takes them all out, really.
I like how Gabrielle's like, see, Xena, you're a good person after all. Show's over. No more to say.
They take all the goon who's injured to some kind of inn, and she continues to be helping people there, because the tavern owner says that, it's like a hospital in here, suddenly, because Prometheus has been captured, and when that happens, humanity loses the gifts that he gave them, which is fire and the ability to heal yourself.
And the Ridley Scott film.
You lose that.
They all forget.
Oh no!
They forget Numi Rapaz.
Oh no!
That's upsetting.
That is so sad.
I mean, it was all right.
She's already forgotten.
I liked in the tavern how you see Gabrielle is really going to town on a bowl of soup or porridge or something. Like, she's really like...
I did not notice that.
Yeah, she's going to town on it.
I do have it somewhere in my notes. I just say Gabrielle likes food and money.
And sleeping, I guess.
And sleeping. So, I mean, I completely identify with Gabrielle. Food, money, sleep.
How did they find out that Prometheus was captured? That's the question.
She just seems to know.
She sees the lightning outside of this tavern. There's like a storm,
Yeah.
and she knows immediately.
I mean,
oh, because, there's a person with a cold and they drop dead.
Yeah.
And so hence she's like, oh, fuck, Prometheus has been captured.
Yeah.
That's it.
You get the sense that Xena sort of has this supernatural ability to kind of discern.
Know what the plot of the episode is?
Well,
the script is telling her
especially when
something?
it involves the gods. She knows when it's an Ares episode. In this case, she knows that it's a crossover with Hercules. Right?
Okay,
she
great.
Just can sense
That's
that
right.
coming.
That's right. Well, that
Yeah.
kind of goes with this line where she's supposed to go to this oracle, and Gabrielle goes, "How do you know you're supposed to visit this particular oracle if Prometheus is captured?" And Xena's response is, "I just know."
It says it on page 16 of the script, Gabs.
Yeah, I mean, later you find out that for some insane reason, this was a conversation that she had with Hercules, like
Right.
post-coital or something from
Yeah,
the
when
Hercules
would they
eps.
have had this conversation?
Post-coital, I think
Interesting.
you're
Like-
exactly right.
Like, they just do their, plots from the Hercules
Whispering
episodes.
sweet nothings.
Which is, hey, baby.
Oh my God.
If for some reason Prometheus is captured, you gotta go see this X and Y.
Honestly, I think this would 100%
Oracle.
be like Hercules' version of pillow talk, which is precisely why she was like, "Bye, I've gotten all I can out of this
Oh my
relation.
God.
I'm gonna move on now."
So she goes to this oracle, and it's three ladies, and they bust some moves. They look a little bit, as you call them, New Jersey
Yeah,
bitches.
the first one was a little.
She's
walked
in a-
over from the
Perms,
Sopranos.
they have headbands, they have
Yeah.
like really, really blue eyeshadow.
This is the second incident of sexy dancing. We had Xena dance in Cradle of Hope already. This
Yep.
is three ladies, though.
They're pretty fully clothed, so this is
Yeah.
an early version of something that will eventually be much more prominent, I would say, in
Yeah,
Xena's
but they make her do this
oeuvre.
crazy thing where they're like, "How much are you willing to give to find out?"
I liked this test.
Yeah.
I love the whole idea that she has to reach into the jaws of this skull. It
like
was-
dinosaur.
I think
head.
I called it T-Rex skull, but then
Yeah.
later we see what is clearly a pterodactyl, so maybe it's a
Are
pterodactyl.
you serious?
skull.
That's the same thing.
It would make sense, I would
but
say.
it
in
had
the plot.
teeth, and the pterodactyl only has a beak.
Ooh, okay. You used logic to defeat me. So, okay, there's a T-Rex skull
Okay.
in addition to
Yeah.
the pterodactyls.
Yeah,
For
that
some
makes
reason,
sense.
dinosaurs
Yeah.
are really important to Prometheus.
When did Jurassic Park come out?
1993.
Oh, so
So-
they already had dino fever in America.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go.
America's always had dino fever. Yeah, but I really loved the detail of that flame that's burning through the rope as she's reaching her arm. Like, I feel like,
Yeah.
like many of the best versions of kind of these high tension scenes, you really felt viscerally the danger of like Xena's poor arm in
Yeah.
between T-Rex teeth.
Yeah.
Well, her whole body. I mean, she went in
Yeah,
there torso.
by the end, her entire torso
Yeah.
is in there.
I did
Yeah.
love her reaction when she pulls the tablet out and the jaws snap and the tablet breaks. Like, her reaction is just genuinely like shock. It was pretty great.
Oh, but don't worry, the tablet didn't say anything.
Yeah, New Jersey Oracle steps in there and it's like, it's fine.
Yeah. She gives her incredibly complicated instructions. To go to Mount Vulcan
Yeah.
and get a sword.
From the cave.
But the Hera guys are going to be there trying to attack her.
This
Yes.
episode is kind of overstuffed with plot, I would
Plotty
say.
I mean, the plot like kind of makes characters go from point A to point B, so but it is a really complicated kind of plot situation. I was like taking notes or something and I looked, I was like, what did she just tell her? Like, this is crazy. I didn't pick up on it at all.
It reminds me a lot of
an Indiana Jones,
Right.
which also
there
has
you
sort
go.
of point A to point B to point C, and you can't really follow the logic.
That makes
Also,
sense.
This episode also literally does very Indiana Jones
Yeah,
stuff
so
when
there
you
you
get
go.
to the like cave traps. And
I
stuff
think
like
this is
that.
intentional.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah, I thought the cave traps were really well photographed
Right.
and edited. Like, it's a really cool
Yeah.
sequence where
There's like
she's like ducking under the swinging hammer.
That mallet is 100% like a giant version of like a tenderizing mallet for meat.
Well, Xena narrowly escapes tenderizing.
That's
so
true.
that's
They
good.
do this great. I know we're not quite there yet chronologically, but in that moment where you think she's fallen down the last like pit or whatever, there's
Yeah.
a really cool thing that they do with the editing where they just like silently show like empty parts of the
Yeah,
cave.
I love
and
that
it's
too.
Very effective.
atmospheric and like what just happened. It's very
Yeah.
cool.
And then it's followed by a wonderful shot of Xena kind of crawling her way up out of a pit, which to me recalls like that scene in Kill Bill where the bride crawls out of the grave,
nice.
and probably some other things since
That is also based on the
Tarantino
same.
is always referencing
Yeah.
something.
But the shot of her kind of crawling out of the hole is
I
gonna
guess
be
it's referencing Night of the Living Dead.
right. But I mean, I was gonna say that it's gonna be used a lot throughout the run of the series. This happens, the same kind of shot of her crawling out happens multiple times in different episodes
Okay.
throughout the show. So this is one of those things
An
where you
important
keep,
image.
Yeah, keep your eye on for
The
that.
indomitable Xena, you can't keep her down.
Speaking of which, there was an interesting conversation she had with Gabrielle after she found out
Yes.
these instructions. We don't hear the instruction, the final beat about the sword that
There's
she will
something
get.
you should know about the sword.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
She's gonna, like, the point is she has to go to this Mount Vulcan and get the sword, and then presumably use the sword to break Prometheus out from the chains, right? But then the New Jersey Oracle is like, there's something you need to know about the sword, like you just said. We don't hear it, but then the next conversation Xena has with Gabrielle, I thought was pretty important, and kind of like the first time they mentioned this, and I think they mentioned stuff like this throughout the show, at least certainly in season 1 and 2 a lot.
oh yeah.
What happens to Gabrielle if Xena dies?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she like specifically is like, "What do you want to do?"
And I liked the way that Gabrielle participated in the conversation. She doesn't really want to be talking about it, but she does kind of straightforwardly go, "I'm going to be a traveling bard. Well, then I'm going to go to school in Athens. And can we please stop talking about this? This is depressing."
Yeah.
But I like that she answered her with like a definitive plan, that she did have this sort of
Gabrielle's
goal.
a realist on
Yeah.
some level. She has thought of what she would do with her life if she wasn't traveling with Xena.
Did you guys pick up on, like, at least when the first time we watched it, did you pick up that possibly the missing dialogue between the Oracle and Xena about the sword had something to do with the next line?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Like me personally, like wouldn't have tied the two together.
Okay.
I knew.
But
you knew
I'm
from
sure.
that?
For sure.
yeah,
Okay,
I didn't. 'cause
Interesting.
I don't know.
Okay.
I
just feel
think
like
it's what you said with
yeah.
how like there was like so much going on
Yeah.
with the plot that I wasn't really like thinking about what the specific plotty nature
Yeah.
of everything.
You
Going
were like,
on
now
was.
there's just this
I was like, oh, they're going on a
conversation, why
dangerous
not?
mission.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
talking about serious stuff.
Okay.
But
So the next thing is that there's a big reunion happens.
Yay, the parent show comes to reassert itself and to give its blessing to the child show. Yes, please everyone, watch this show. It's good too.
Xena has her first reunion with Hercules
Right.
since leaving him in bed or on some rocks or whatever they had sex on. And it was pretty awkward. They kind of fought here, right? Because she had the sword.
Yeah, he wants the sword that can break the chains
Yeah.
of Prometheus, which she's beaten him to the punch with.
Yeah.
I think it's telling about their two kind of perspectives, that she has the sword, he has just like a stick.
He picks up a stick and fights her. I mean,
his stick.
she's not fighting with like the sword. She's fighting with her own
Her
sword.
sword,
But
yeah.
it still is weird that a stick and a sword had an entire fight together, and like that shouldn't have happened.
You know.
let's kind of just talk about the like juicy, I guess you would call it, like reason that they are fighting is that they both want to do the self-sacrificing thing. So they each want the sword, right?
Well, it's revealed that who swings the sword will be
Exactly.
completely electrocuted and killed.
Right. One of the most kind of sad / moving things for me in this whole situation was the fact that, okay, Hercules doesn't want Xena to die, like, la la la, he's Hercules, he's going to be the hero. But Xena is doing it kind of because she says, no one's going to miss me, the world needs Hercules. She still feels like, you know, she's a person who has this past.
This is a self-punishing thing. Exactly. She thinks she deserves to die for this.
Just that whole thing, nobody will miss me. It was so upsetting. So sad.
To me, also, you can't help but hear the meta layer, which is that Hercules is an established program that people watch, and no one's watching Xena yet, so no one's gonna miss her.
It's true.
She's a spin-off
but
character.
It's interesting because I was just thinking how Hercules is based on a legend. He's like a real thing. The show Xena, throughout the show, will create the legend of Xena via Gabrielle's Xena scrolls.
Yes.
So they haven't been written yet. So, like, it's just so interesting how
Hercules is an important figure in the popular imagination, where Xena is just struggling to become that. She's in her early stages.
And is popular in the wrong way.
Right. She's infamous.
Right. Infamous.
Yes. Well, she also has a reunion with Iolaus.
And Gabrielle meets...
Well, Gabrielle meets Iolaus, and they are the same height and the same coloring.
They kind of form like a support group for sidekicks. Yeah. You feel like they're like, oh, do you go through this feeling? Is this normal? Yeah, totally normal. It's fine.
I loved her, asking these questions. Like, they were genuine questions to him. Like, what do you do, when there's a fight? Because right now, her problem is that she doesn't know what to do when there's like a big fight. She stands in the sidelines. Yeah. We see later on where she has like a little rake, and she's kind of like miming hitting somebody with it.
I loved that moment with her and the rake. Yeah, you see how much she wants to participate, but she just has nothing to do yet.
And she physically can't.
Yeah.
But she wants to be Iolaus, I think, when she sees that here is an example of a sidekick who can fight alongside the hero and do real good. She wants that. I think this actually is a very important episode for Gabrielle, because she's kind of being provided with a model for how to behave in a hero-sidekick relationship.
Yeah, but I just love how she's like, how do you do it? When you guys start fighting, like, you just stand around or whatever. And he's like, well, I don't. I mean, I help. And it was just so, she wants to be like that. It was very good. Yes?
Sorry, I just got overwhelmed by my Gabrielle feelings. We're in this episode, right, where, Xena is already asking her, like, hey, if I'm not around, what are you going to do? She's like, I'm going to be a bard. I write. I tell stories. This is my thing. Gabrielle in the beginning is very much about, like, talking her way out of things. Yeah. Like, writing is her thing. And, here you have your first instance of her being physically unable to fight. And then, like you said, Libby, seeing someone else having that ability is probably like putting the idea in her head to want to become a fighter in a real way. And this is just literally Gabrielle, the character's arc over the whole show. And just seeing it in this kind of like infancy is really powerful, even in just these little moments.
Yes, this is why I wanted to recommend a really amazing vid, Everywhere by Frey Adjacent, which sort of deals with her evolution, as like a little baby who kind of mimes Xena fighting, from the background to becoming somebody who can actually do that herself. It's really good.
I also found it very interesting that Hercules, in that scene inside the barn, uses a rake the same way Gabrielle is miming a fight with a rake.
Did we previously establish whether or not rakes existed?
This will be a mystery as the show goes on. Yes.
Did the ancient Greeks
Internet,
have rakes?
please,
what did
please
it look
tweet
like?
us.
Would it have been like a rake as we know it?
Well, here it was a rake as we know it, so maybe not quite legit.
But to me, again, in the same way that Hercules with the stick versus Xena with the sword, you keep kind of associating non-fatal weapons with Hercules. He's clearly a character who is too good to brandish a sword, which of course makes it, it's very clear that he is probably not going to be the person who wields that sword at the end of the episode, because the sword is not his weapon. It isn't a weapon he knows. Yeah. So, in the same way that sweet baby angel Gabrielle can only imagine holding a rake, Hercules will use a rake. That to him.
I mean, he grabs anything that's around. That's what he does to like defend, but he never I still find it's crazy that they don't have any weapons, really. Even though on Hercules they had that, like, sexy scene where they forged, like, knives together.
That's true. They clearly aren't afraid of blades,
Wow.
but they don't carry them. That clearly is a very conscious choice by the writers and by the characters.
Yeah. Iolaus was hurt in the scene from the bar, and that's what was revealed.
Very bad because
Yeah.
we can't heal. So
To
he's
me-
probably going to die if they don't fix
Yeah,
the
that's
situation.
it's a big deal.
To me, this felt like another sort of, here is a model for Gabrielle to learn from. And this is a really sad model, because here's another thing the sidekick does, which is they suffer in silence.
Oh.
They
no.
don't kind of burden the hero with their own quiet pain.
That
so
is
Iolaus,
really deep.
That's really
Iolaus
deep.
hides this injury from Hercules, and Gabrielle kind of becomes his conspirator in hiding it.
Yeah. But I mean, any chance that the hero would go, well, you can't do, the big heroic thing now because you're somehow incapacitated. Of course they would hide it. You never want to.
But this, I think, is one of the biggest problems about, the hero-sidekick relationship, is it fosters this culture of kind of deception.
Yeah.
You can't share with each other because it might disqualify you from being
I mean, it
able to
did.
help.
They did disqualify him.
Yeah.
They made him sit it out.
Yeah, as soon as it became too serious to hide.
Yeah, I mean, he really couldn't function. So.
I know, yeah. And well, okay, so like at this point, right, we have Xena and Hercules going off on their own, and the thought is that one of them isn't coming back, and the goodbye scene, I guess you'd call
Yeah.
it, between Xena and Gabrielle is really, like, I don't know what to call it, but
Emotional.
they just stare at each other for a while.
They had a cuddle time.
Yeah.
And then Gabrielle ended it by saying, don't strike
do
this.
it.
Yeah, don't do it.
strike the blow.
And
Yeah,
Xena
don't
says,
strike
be
the-
brave. Yeah, and then gives her a little elbow squeeze. Like one little elbow squeeze.
An
and
elbow squeeze.
I have to talk about probably one of my favorite parts of the episode, which is Gabrielle is staying with Aeolus, who is injured, and she's trying to, keep him awake and conscious and all this stuff, and tells him this story, which is from Plato Symposium, and who actually said it in there? I don't-
Aristophanes.
Aristophanes
Yes.
is the character in Plato's Symposium who
Yes.
delivers the speech. Aristophanes is a comic playwright, so that's something to keep in mind when actually talking about that speech, because it could be seen as satirical.
Okay, but let's not because my whole association with this story is with one of my favorite songs of all time, which is "The Origin of Love" from Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which sort of tells the story of Zeus splitting everyone in half. So you have, male, females who are stuck back to back, right? You have these people stuck back to back with like 8 limbs. One is male and female, one is a man and a man, and the other is a woman and a woman. And they get split. And so the whole story of love is like trying to reconnect these souls that were split in half. And it's just the best story. I just find it so sad and romantic, and it's such a great song. And I love that she's telling this story. And I think it's very applicable to both relationships that are going on right now, especially from, not just the show's perspective, but also the fandom perspective, and where Netflix is very confused about the double dates that are happening.
Well, what did you say? What did you say? It was, it's Hercules and Iolaus and Xena and Gabrielle.
Yeah, and I think, when you're watching this episode, you can obviously very much read things whatever way you want at this point, and that, jumping ahead to the end where everything is supposed to be kind of like Hercules loves Xena, and like
very heteronormative
Aeolus
agenda.
and Gabrielle had a thing, but it ends with the Hercules and Aeolus walking off together, and Xena and Gabrielle walking off together, and I think that's the important thing to note.
Yeah, in a way, Gabrielle is telling the story about what she calls soulmates. And why couldn't a hero and a sidekick be soulmates?
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't that the two halves that complete each other?
Exactly, and I think obviously I haven't seen Hercules. I don't think that is as big of
I don't think
theme
it's
as it
textual.
actually becomes on.
Well, it
on
ended with
Xena.
them walking off together.
It does,
so,
yeah.
yes.
But like textually and canonically, throughout the rest of the show, you have Xena and Gabrielle talking about each other in these terms.
Isn't Iolaus a bit of a mimbo?
He is a mimbo.
He's a ladies' man.
Yes, which is why we give him a pass for, seeing Gabs and being like, sure, I think she was talking about me as her soulmate. Why not, But for Gabrielle, I feel like as much as the script maybe wanted to push the fact that, wouldn't it be cute if Xena and Hercules were OTP?
Two small blondes.
Yeah, two talls get together, two smalls get together. Wouldn't that be cute? Hearing her say the story was absolutely not about her and Iolaus, even though the end of the episode claims that it is.
And all of the kissing between.
There was a lot of kissing also happening.
I think it's a point we all wrote down. So much kissing.
Yeah, there was quite a push in a certain direction.
Speaking of kissing, though, we have Xena and Hercules off by themselves going to, try and free Prometheus, and Xena and Hercules in their kind of big last conversation are, talking about their relationship, and you kind of think that Xena is going along with what he's saying, but really is just trying to get the sword away from him.
She's doing the wiles.
Yeah, as usual, when Xena has to talk romantic emotions, it's really just a cover for her using her wiles to get what she needs, which in this case is the sword of Hephaestus.
Yeah, she tries it again.
Hercules is like, you never give up, do you? And classic Xena is like, nope.
Nope. I think this is basically intercut with Gabrielle's story to Iolaus. So in a way, you have these two romantic episodes between the characters that are both undermined. In Xena and Hercules' case, it's undermined by the fact that Xena's just saying it to get close enough to get the sword. And in the case of Gabrielle and Iolaus, she's telling him this very romantic story that actually is an origin story for heterosexual but also homosexual relationships.
Yeah.
So it's a big gay story that she tells to Iolaus, and he's like, oh my god, I love you, and she's like, that's nice.
Well, the thing is, so it's intercut, and then the crux of her dialogue after the story cuts back to them, and she's like, sometimes I wonder what she sees in me, so it's like literally brings it back. I mean, that's why he says what she sees in her is that you're pure of heart. Which is true. That's absolutely. Didn't she say that in the previous episode too?
He's right about her being pure of heart, and he's right about that being what Xena sees in her.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that, though. Nobody wants to be told that their purity is what another person is interested in.
Isn't part of the story that when people throw their arms around each other and hug each other, that they're trying to find the person to connect with again?
They're trying to become that round, four-legged blob again.
Right.
Yeah, but I think that the whole point is that you can't.
Yeah. Right, but Xena and Gabrielle have a lot of cuddle times, and this episode they did have a hug. So there, just saying.
Honestly, what I took out of the story in Plato's Symposium is it's kind of a justification for why married men can fuck boys. That's what it's actually
Greece,
about.
classic ancient Greece.
Like classic Greece.
Yeah, classic ancient Greece. That, in the end, is at least the version of this kind of... That's the one kind of person that Aristophanes is really interested in talking about, which is sort of a half of a male creature.
None of it was to explain why their wives weren't interested in them, but wanted to go off with their lady friends.
It gets a mention.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, lesbians are important to that story, but Aristophanes literally calls out, male men
of course,
for being the most manly. They're courageous and heroic in their pursuit of other men, sometimes while being married to women, which obviously is just kind of... don't worry too much about that.
What a great way of thinking. While all of this really deep stuff is happening, Xena comes up and sees the captured Prometheus. There's a bunch of giant eggs kind of hanging there. They start hatching. And she fights these weird green guys.
Yes. And Vera, you had a great comment when we were watching about what it looked like.
This is straight out of Power Rangers.
Oh, really? It did seem that way.
100%.
And it had that quality of watching Hercules from the very minuscule amount of Hercules that I've actually seen.
Well, you were like, I blame Hercules for the fact that then 2 seconds later, Xena gets snatched up by the giant pterodactyl. Yeah. And it's really weird.
There's a silliness to it that I think is more Herculesian.
Yeah, but it's crazy that this is happening.
You don't really have a sense of threat. It's all so sort of
It's such a tone
mythological
shift.
and goofy,
Right.
and production values low because there's no really great way from a show in
Yeah.
1995 to like visualize this stuff.
Right. When those things hatched, my note is just like, what are these things?
They're green, weird things. We
Are
don't
they
even know.
humans? Or
No, they're like weird
they're meant to
monsters.
be-
Are
Listen,
they part of the army thing?
I have no idea
yeah.
what they're supposed to
Well,
be, and neither does Lucy Lawless,
they are a
guys. She
problem.
hates them so much.
I mean, they look bad. This is not a high point for the show.
No. This moment was really not great. Yeah, it calls out like weird
Hercules
old
as a
movies.
show definitely seems to have a dependence on like CGI creatures, which obviously that hasn't aged very well. Fully computer rendered monsters just look like cartoons and kind of play like cartoons. To me, this felt very much like a cartoon climax for Xena.
I think you're supposed to give it a pass though, because as we will see in the episode where Gabrielle does go to the academy and they do kind of, that's their clip show episode, they use these clips, and throughout the whole series actually, sometimes you see clips from kind of like royalty free old movies and things like that, where people do fight like weird monsters and things like that.
Well,
So-
the immediate cultural touchstone for me was Harryhausen films. You know, Jason and the Argonauts. These kind of
the
stop
skeleton.
motion
Yeah.
films.
So that's kind of, I think, the explanation for their really bad kind of CG monsters that
They should
happen.
have just gone with the stop motion.
They happen a lot in, I think, season 1, but I feel like they kind of taper off. You know, like Xena does fight like weird harpies and things like that.
I think it very much was the Hercules
Yeah.
influence. I think they wanted to kind of introduce these more kind of mythic creatures. And it just isn't very Xena. To me, Xena is about human beings.
Yeah.
And monsters are much more of this kind of Manichaean black and white morality. And that is not Xena. That is not the program.
Well, that's why the tone shift was so strong, where you go from Gabrielle saying this completely emotional, totally character-driven speech to Iolaus, who's dying, and then you go a cut to Xena and Hercules fighting
She's
this
on a
crazy...
pterodactyl ride. Who doesn't want to go on a pterodactyl ride?
She's having a great time.
She drops out of the sky and Hercules catches her. What does he say? Nice of you to drop
to
in.
drop in.
Oh,
Grown.
Well, they find a way around one of them using the sword and dying.
Yeah.
Because she drops the sword from really high up, so I guess the force of
Right,
it...
he deflects it with the rock and it
And then
does some chakra-y stuff.
Yeah, and it
like,
cuts
where it
the
bounces.
chains,
It's
and
such
Prometheus
a
is
fucking
free.
cop out. I'm sorry. This is not how you tell a story.
Hercules should have just
You
died.
don't. I'm sorry, but yes, somebody needed to die. You can't promise the death of someone and then have it be like, well, I threw the sword, and then you reflected it with a rock.
Gabrielle said you should find a way to work together, and they did. Okay?
That's true.
So
that
there you
was
go.
nice.
That's nice.
The parent show and the spin-off show found a way to cooperate, and we're in favor of that. But actually, we're in favor of Xena killing Hercules forever.
I have a note here that says Gabs, Iolaus, no TP.
They don't know each other. I mean,
They
that's
don't know
what
each
like
other.
if you choose to interpret that soulmate speech as Gabrielle talking about Iolaus, it's nonsense. They have had one conversation together. And unless you really believe in love at first sight, like
We're supposed to do that because Xena and Gabrielle, come on.
yeah, but they've had time to kind of
Excuse me, she
work on
saw
that
her and was like,
relationship.
I'm going with this lady.
There
She
was a
got knocked
connection.
out, Xena,
Yeah, that's true.
because she was looking at Gabrielle.
There you go.
Okay, true.
No,
but I
they're
feel
certainly best friends.
what you've seen of Iolaus and Gabrielle, it just does not seem motivated at all.
Or certainly that deep. Like, that intensely deep.
This is where I have to remind everybody that Xena fucked both Hercules and Iolaus.
Oh, thank you.
And I think Iolaus would like to fuck both Xena and Gabrielle.
But he's a Mimba, so that's just in character for him. But meanwhile,
I do like
Hercules
Iolaus.
literally professes his love to Xena like big time. And
I
that's
felt-
really
he
strange.
does.
I
Yeah.
felt this was a moment where you really were kind of looking for that approval from the parent show. Again, I guess I always do
You're so
these-
meta.
I see this as meta. To me, I'm like, Hercules needs to be in love with Xena in order to convince the audience that Xena is sort of worthy of their love.
Yeah.
Right.
He is
he's
the audience
intense about
surrogate.
it. He's like,
Yeah.
ever since my wife died, whatever
Yeah.
his speech was to her, yeah.
Yeah. It's odd for both shows to do this because neither character obviously can pursue that relationship.
She has another line at the end, towards the end of season 1, where she's like, if anything happened to you, Gabrielle, or Hercules. And I'm like, what?
Or
you
Hercules.
Don't care about Hercules? Come on, girl.
But it's a little like Buffy and Angel, where, the lovers are separated by an unbreachable divide, which is that they're on different shows.
But there they had such a believable history,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like he guest starred for like 3 episodes, and then it's like, oh my god, they're eternal.
That's true.
Like, it wasn't quite.
No,
like,
no.
I think they had to explain away that, Hercules had sex with this lady, and like there had to have been some love, because you can't have him be just having like a one night stand.
He's not a mimbo.
Yeah, he's not the mimbo of the two, so you have to give him like, oh, he had feelings for her, and that's why they, had sex and stuff. Anyway, I don't know why I'm like remembering that awful love scene.
But I think it's pretty clear that Xena, like, while she does care about Hercules, like, and I know you said, later she says that thing about, I love you, Gabs and Hercules. But like, I think it's really clear from her actions, like, she doesn't like quite reciprocate as strongly.
No, she absolutely doesn't. Yeah. But again, we give her a pass because her taste in men is like really intense. Like, this is a genuine nice guy, and
Honestly,
let her have it. Let's let her have it.
He certainly is not in the pattern of men
what
that
she's
she
into.
has.
Yeah. So we allow it.
I think she wants to be the sort of person who could reciprocate his love. I think she wants to, be someone who could be worthy of a nice guy. But in terms of, even moving forward from this point, the other men in the show who she's attracted to are always bad boys for the most part, or at least ambiguous boys. Yeah. I think Hercules represents something to Xena that she can't have, which I guess is romantic in
Well,
a
like
way.
at this point in her life where she thinks she needs to be punished and everything like that.
But does she ever really progress beyond that point in her life?
No, she doesn't. No.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
I mean, I think there are points where you think maybe almost she does, but we'll get to those.
So what did we think of these two?
Episodes. Hey.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Prometheus in particular is just sort of, it's an inevitable episode. Of course you need to have an episode that's a crossover, and you need to have an episode where, Xena has to try out all the stuff that Hercules does and kind of be like, what is an episode of Xena, and how is it different from Hercules? And the only way you can figure that out is by literally doing an episode from Hercules. And,
And these both kind of felt like they could have been Hercules's.
Yeah, they're mythological. They're, I think, a little bit lighter. They're less interested in these questions of sort of morality and violence.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're fun. We survived them.
Yeah, and so can you. Okay, so join us next time when we talk about some more episodes from season 1. You can follow us on all the things. Katie, you're so good at this. Why don't you say it always?
Well, we're on Twitter at Xena Warrior Pod. You can rate us and subscribe and download episodes on iTunes, leave reviews. That's always a good thing, especially if you leave a good review. We're on Tumblr at Xena Warrior Podcast. And you can also download episodes places like Stitcher, Google Play, if iTunes is not your bag.
We have a Facebook too.
Oh yes, that's true. Facebook also, Xena Warrior Podcast. Yeah.
We have a YouTube channel.
That's also true. We're like everywhere. So like,
guys,
whatever your favorite thing is, find us on it.
Yeah, because we're your favorite thing. All right, guys, the power,
the passion,
the podcast!